Or is this full-time MMA now?
I love full-time MMA right now.
Full-time MMA?
MMA.
Nothing else?
My life, man, yeah.
Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full-time
MMA.
Are you fucking kidding me? Full-time family. Max Holloway has withdrawn from UFC 226 with concussion-like symptoms, and this low-key sounds serious, but this is crazy. International Fight Week is cursed, man. I ain't been talking about it. I've seen some rumblings of, hey man, hopefully a big fight doesn't get canceled. This is International Fight Week, and there's a history if you go back now, which I'll actually show you toward the end of the video, of the line of International Fight Weeks that have been marred by injury or whatever reason. But as far as Max Holloway, if you've been watching his interviews leading up to the fight, he hasn't really seemed like he was all the way there. Maybe like he was a little tired. So I don't know what's going on here with Max Holloway, but it does seem pretty serious. This is what his team had to say. It says he was showing concussion-like symptoms before he even started his weight cut, and was rushed to the ER on Monday, where they admitted him overnight. Initial scans seemed okay, and he was released Tuesday afternoon, but symptoms still continued. They said Max fought with his team to continue with the fight. He showed some improvement over the next day, but was still showing obvious symptoms. After opening workouts, he crashed and was very hard to wake up when he did. He had flashing vision and slurred speech. He's now back in the ER for further tests. This marks the second time in a row Holloway has been forced to withdraw from a bout during fight week. He was ruled medically unfit to fight a day before UFC 223. If you guys recall, he stepped up to replace Tony Ferguson, but then he actually had to get pulled from the fight with Khabib. The commission pulled him out when he was cutting weight. So also, he was pulled out of his UFC 222 fight with Jose Aldo, if I'm not mistaken, or no, with Frankie Edgar. With Frankie Edgar, he was supposed to fight Frankie Edgar, and he was pulled out of that fight. And that's where Brian Ortega stepped up and actually earned his title shot. So Max Holloway has been going, he's been getting the worst of it as far as the injury bug, for sure, man. For one, he had the ankle injury at UFC 222. The injury at UFC 223, he wasn't necessarily injured, but the weight cut was why he was stopped there. But that's still another time having, to kind of be pulled out of the fight. And then here's another time. And this is crazy, man. UFC 226 was going down. It's still going down. It's still going to be a great night of fights. But this was a fight that a lot of us were looking forward to, man. Brian Ortega looked amazing in his last in all of his UFC fights, really, with what he's been able to do. It's been marvelous, because he's in the fights before Cub Swanson and Frankie Edgar, where he really stood out. Before that, he was still showing his clutch gene. If you want to talk about clutch gene in MMA, you're talking about Brian Ortega. He doesn't leave it to the judges. I mean, he might be losing the fight if it would have went to a decision, but nah. We ain't taking it there. We're getting the finish in the third round, and he's just been improving and improving. He got the finish over Cub Swanson in the second round, almost the first, but he got it in the second round. And then Frankie Edgar, even more improvements. He was able to become the first person to finish Frankie Edgar, and it was in the first round. So Brian Ortega looked like he was in the prime of his life, primed to possibly become the UFC featherweight champion with a win here over Max Holloway. But Max Holloway is going through something that seems to be pretty serious. And now, just for some, we're going to go over to the internet here, some fighters reacting to this, and this was actually from earlier. Check this out. This was Max Holloway. He wasn't really looking like he was himself here. This was just one of the examples.
Well, Max, you say you feel great, and, don't be offended when I say this, but you look like you just got out of bed. Are you tired? What's going on? How's the weight cut? Are you drained? I mean, you look a little sleepy.
I'm good, man. I'm good. A little bit tired. They got me doing a bunch of media stuff, but I'll be fine, man.
He's definitely slurring his words right there. A little bit tired. You know what I'm saying? And so for I don't know what it seems like, some type of concussion-like symptoms. That's what I was gonna say, but that's what we said in the beginning. But either way, slurring your words, taking a nap, and being hard to wake up, that shit seems super serious, man. So you got, if you think about it, Max Holloway, he's only like 26 years old, and he's already had like 16 to 18 fights in the UFC. He was real active, earning his title shot, 11 fight winning streak before he got now. But to get the title shot, he went on a 9 or 10 fight winning streak. And when you go that route, you know what I'm saying, when you gotta whoop 9-10 dudes ass to get the title shot, you might have some wear and tear by then. But hey, man, Max Holloway has looked great up until then, and even defending his belt, the featherweight title. But this is definitely concerning as a Max Holloway fan and as an MMA fan for sure. But with that being said, you heard it here first, and if not, you heard it here second. Max Holloway is out of UFC 226 with concussion-like symptoms. I'll keep you guys updated. Stay tuned. There's no confirmation as to whether or not Brian Ortega will still be remaining on the card in an interim title fight possibly, or if he's going to be removed and possibly fight Max Holloway when he's healthy. But who knows what's going on with that situation. So we might see Brian Ortega in an interim title fight, but we'll see what happens. Stay tuned. I'll keep you guys updated. Let the full-time feeling know what you think in the comments. And P.S. here's a quick International Fight Week timeline of the curse that seems to be International Fight Week. At UFC 189, Aldo pulled out shortly before his fight with McGregor. UFC 200, John Jones pulled out due to an anti-doping violation. UFC 213, Amanda Nunes had sinusitis. And now UFC 226, Holloway is out with his concussion-like symptoms. So that's unfortunate. It seems like UFC International Fight Week is cursed, but to be fair, there's a lot of fights, so you could imagine there might be some cancellations. Now, these have all been pretty big fights being canceled, but we got the Ultimate Fighter Season 27 finale Friday, and then, of course, UFC 226 Slugfest City on Saturday, and that's got the whole undercard, and, of course, the pay-per-view. But, I mean, these have been main event fights that have been getting canceled, or co-main event in this situation. Luckily for us, we have Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic, champion versus champion super fight, and MMA gods forbid nothing happens to that fight in these next couple of days. I was gonna say hopefully DC makes weight, but he's fighting a heavyweight, so I think we're good. I don't think we're gonna have Stipe or Daniel Cormier missing the heavyweight limit, so I think we'll be good as far as that fight's concerned. But UFC 226 has lost its co-main event as Max Holloway has withdrew with concussion-like symptoms. And before we go, shout out to all the full-time MMA white belts that have hit the subscribe button. Make sure you also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. And if you want to become a full-time MMA blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, or black belt, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/fulltimemma. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOWG.